Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to you all who are here with us, and good afternoon to the people who are watching us live from home. Please give us a big hand to start the activity. Welcome to the Male panel, the Mekong ASEAN Environmental Week 2023. Today is the last day in Ubon, Ratchathani, and here we are at a bookstore called Philadelphia. Today we will talk about important topics, which is about politics in Isaan and accessibility to the natural resources of the people in Isaan. We have two speakers with us here today, so please allow me to introduce the speakers. The first one is the young person. Her name is Kotchakorn Bualumlum, with the two lam, Kotchakorn Bualumlum. And she's a young activist who's been studying about the problems of the people in this area. And she has an important, and the other one, our speaker, he is the owner of the bookstore, and he's going to talk about his experiences so she's with us here today to talk about her experiences in talking about in working with young people and people in Isaan. And another speaker with us today, he is a bookstore owner. Around him, there are a lot of books around him. He's surrounded by books. If you are interested in his books, you can come to visit his bookstore and buy some books from him. You can sit outside as well if you would like, so that we can have more space for people who come later. Actually, in Isaan area, Isaan region is the area that is the third biggest area in the country, and has abundant natural resources. We have a lot of rivers. We have the Khong Chi Moon rivers. We have natural resources. We have gas. We have fossil. We have forest. But from my experiences, from the experience of Isaan people, even though we have the highest number of population, but we have been oppressed by the central government. We have been oppressed for a long time, and we also have a long history of our struggle since the holy man อะไรนะเสียงลมเข้ามาอ๋อโอเคงั้นพี่ต้องไปอยู่ในห้องใช่ไหมso our speaker today, with Mr. Wittayakara, will talk about that. We'll talk about a long history of the struggle of the holy men in the past, which is related to the accessibility to the natural resources of Isaan people. So please allow me to. Today is actually the 10th year anniversary of the people struggle to fight against the case of the electricity plant, the coal plant in one of the provinces in Thailand. So, and we won the case. So I would like you to give us a big hand to celebrate our victory. But first of all, I would like you all to hear from our speakers. So we will start from Kun Jiap or Kun Wittayakara Sowatta, so he can tell us a bit more about the history of our struggle in Isaan region. After I finished my talk in Songsan coffee shop, and I just met someone who talked to me, and he asked me why I spoke Thai in my talk. Actually, yesterday I tried to explain to Ajahn Ian, Dr. Ian. I tried to explain to him, but then he kept talking and talking and talking, and then he didn't listen to me. So yesterday I met with Esarn, who will speak Lao at the talk at the coffee shop. So I wanted to tell you that I would like to speak Lao also, but when I need to explain my deep thoughts, my complicated ideas, it's hard for me. So I started school in 1983, around 1983. And that's in 1983, that's when I started school. At that time, it was during the Cold War time. My hometown is in Kalasin province, and I was forced by my teachers to not speak Lao. If I spoke Lao, I would be punished or would be. When I was in school, I was so poor, I didn't have money to go to school. So I wouldn't have money to pay for the fine if I was fined by my teacher. So at school, I would speak Thai. Outside the classroom, my teachers would spoke loud to me, but just to have like conversation. But then when I had like discussion or when I had to study in the classroom, I was used Thai, so I was trained to communicate, to speak Thai when I need to explain or when I need to share my ideas. So I wouldn't be able to explain everything if I were to speak Thai. But today I will try to speak Lao, for this talk. So my mom, raised me and always told me that we are Lao. My mom didn't know Bangkok. People at my mom's age, they would travel to Sawarnakhet or Vientiane or Vientiane. And there were Buddhists who would travel to like Pratat Panom temple in Nakhon Pathom province. My mom would walk for 9 days and 9 nights in order to travel from Kalasin province to Pratat Panom pagoda to pay respect to the pagoda, which is the same as what we believe about a fish that swim to the Pratat Panom pagoda to pay respect to it. The reason why I moved to Ubon is I asked my mom where my dad's from. So my mom said that my mom and my dad, they live in different area. My mom said that I asked where my dad's from. Sorry, I asked about her where my granddad's from. When the day that I talked to my mom, my dad already passed away, but I have never met my grandfather before, and I knew that the brother of my grandfather also never met his dad. So my granddad told people that he is from Ubon. When I was a teenager, when I was a grown up kid, my mom, my grandmother still alive, but my relatives in Ubonsai, I have never met them. But then when I grew up, I realized that my grandfather might be the holy man, might be part of the holy man group. So I will talk about the holy man rebellion. And also Phra Thát Phanom Pagoda, which is related to Buddhism. Actually, I was so glad to meet with the monk who joined the talk yesterday, because people in my village, they had a lot of respect to the Khmer monks, because we believe that monks who came to our country in the old days, they would travel from the Mekong countries. So in Isaan, Luang City would be the end of would be the mouth of the Mekong River, where it flows through the sea. And some monks might also travel to Bangkok, to Thailand through Myanmar. If you read a book called Chetapon, it's about the traveling of monks in Isaan to India in order to learn about the architecture of the temples, to come back and build temples in Isaan, but they wouldn't travel through the central part of the country. People in Chayaprum province, you would see that there's a Payala monument which facing toward the central region of Bangkok. And you would see that people in the same province, they would have different lifestyle. They would eat sticky rice in some area, and in some area they would eat steamed rice. And some people would speak with the Korat, Nakhon Ratchasima accent. I was born in Kalasin, but I also lived in Chayapum. So people in Chayapum would walk to Phra Thát Phanom Pagoda. People from Loi province also do the same thing. From Chiang Khan district would ride a boat through the Mekong River to pay respect to the pagoda. But after the reign of the King Rama 4 or 5, for Cambodian people, the biggest river is the Tonle Sap Lake, and the fish that swim to the Mekong River are from there. And they swim through the river, through the Mekong River, to the Moon River, through the Chi River and Sebok tributary. So the starting point of the food that we consume in the past day would come from Cambodia. but in our area there's a diversity of the Buddhism. We have different sects of Buddhism that we accepted during the reign the reign of the King Rama IV and King Raman V. But during this reign, we were ordered to accept. We were ordered to accept just one sect of Buddhism. When I ordained as a novice monk, I ordained to be a novice monk because I didn't have money. I never traveled to Bangkok. I was a good student. I was a smart student. So some smart novice monks would, be invited to study in Bangkok because if they can train so many monks to study higher in a higher level, they would, older monks with higher position would be would receive higher, would be in higher and higher position. But my batch, my fellow novice monks and I didn't accept the invitation to go to Bangkok to study. So if we talk about the legend of the Buddhism in the Mekong area, you can see that there's a diversity in the history of the Buddhism. It's very diverse. That Thai literature, we have a lot of plenty of Thai literature. And if we look down on Lao people so much, you have to look at the literature, the Lao literature. In the old days, Isaan's part of Lao, PDR. We have so many books. We have a lot of literature, very diverse literature. So I want to talk about the differences of the Buddhism in the Mekong region and the central part. Is that starting from the reign of King Rama IV? Is that there was a reform of the Buddhism in order to support, to promote the monarchy, the system. You can notice that we have Prabodhisat. We have the Lord Buddha, Siddhartha, as the most important Lord Buddha in Buddhism. So if you learn about the history of Buddhism, Siddhartha was not ordained. In his town, we have the king called sorry, I missed the name. But in Thailand, the Lord Buddha was very honored and praised by people. But in other countries, Lord Buddha would be just a king, but did not receive much honor as the Siddhartha Lord Buddha. For example, Dhammikara king. When there was the hard time, when people suffer with life difficulty, Prabodhisat, Prabodhisat would be the one who relieve people from their suffering. For example, but you can also see like gender discrimination because Bodhisattva wouldn't be able to be female, so you can see gender discrimination in that. But according to the legend, actually Bodhisattva can be anyone, can be either females or males. Actually, I met with some friends yesterday, and he borrowed a picture of Samret Run. He is a monk. He is a very famous monk in the old days. If you read the record of the investigation of the holy men, or if you read a document written by Term Pipak, you would read about the leader of the group who is called Somdet Lun. People in the Thai central area wouldn't know about the positions, the titles of monks in Isaan. We don't have the word Somdet to call monk. So we call him Samret, which is not appointed by the king, but he was appointed by the villagers who would give the title to the monk who's very good at teaching and giving Buddhism education to people. So he is called Samret Run, but actually it's not the same as the word as Somdet, which is called by the people in the central region. So in history, people consider him as someone with the magical powers. Someone misunderstood him as sorry, I missed the name. And actually, one of his villages that he went to plan to fight against the government is called Sapư village in Sapư sub-district. So in the Mekong area, monks, famous monks would gather there. He lived there for a while, but people nowadays misunderstood that he's from there, from that particular village. The oldest monk that lived there and passed away there, it was not Samret Run, but Samret Run actually was the grandson of the monk, of the oldest monk ever lived in the village. So from the experiences, from the memories of the people about the struggle over about the overcoming of the oppression of the central government. So if you can imagine, there is no king that ever came to Ubon Ratchathani except King Ramanai and King Ramaten, because at that time it was difficult to travel to Isaan region, because in the old days, I think the monarchy has gained interest from the government, and also the monarchy was just about to just because it can be used as a bumper to prevent from the country from being attacked by the enemies. Because like in the old days, from my memories, people in Kalasin province or Ubon province wouldn't know about the monarchy. So the monks in the old day that were invited to study in Bangkok, to train, were monks in Ubon. That's why it's called the land of the intellectuals. And we have the most intelligent person in Nong Lai village, where the Moon River would flow through the Mekong River. That's why, apart from Bangkok, the Dhammayut Center is in Ubon, and then they would start to they would change the temple under the different sect into Dhammayut sect, so that monks would be appointed as the representative of the monarchy of the king. So that's why Lao people did not favor Dhammayut sect. You could notice that Dhammayut sect in Lao wouldn't gain popularity, and people who were trying to expand the sect couldn't live in Lao. They were chased away by people in Lao. When I went to Hue, I went to Hue in Vietnam, Hue city in Vietnam recently. When we think about Mahayana sect, when I was there, I talk about like Mahaniyan sect, and I thought that people look down on this type of Buddhism. But here in Thailand, if you have a chance to go to Nong Pa Pong temple, which is not far away from here, if compared to this temple to temples in Vietnam, they are actually very peaceful but more beautiful than that temple, that monastery, forest monastery, because they use Zen art to decorate the temple. So all the rivers in Isaan would flow to the Mekong River, not Chao Phraya River. This is something that the central government is trying to take away from us, from our relationship from Laos and from Vietnamese. And then they changed us from Lao people to Isaan people, and they want to control us and by having the central government in Bangkok. So I would like to go back to the topic of the holy men, the uprising of the holy men. At that time, there was a struggle, the movement, the protest between the central government and the holy men group in order to fight for their rights to the natural resources from the highland, from the patrol in the highland area, like in Ubon province. People had to pay taxes to the central government. Ubon governor would have to inform people. They inform the Lao people in Ubon, living in Ubon, the Kui people, the blue ethnic people, and collect taxes from them. But after they changed the tax collection system, we use the same system as used as in England. We would do the tattoo. People would be tattooed with numbers so that they are controlled for the tax collection. So apart from being collected, the tax being collected once a year, they would collect the taxes more often than that. They collect taxes from everyone, from every citizen, for 4 baht at the time. 4 baht At that time it was it's about the year 1357 in Christus EC no, so the English year, sorry. I will talk for 10 minutes from now. So when the French took over Laos, so Laos didn't want to. At that time, the leader of Laos oppressed their slaves, who also have the tattoo as the number. So the starting point of the uprising happened in Salawan province. At that time, the territory, the boundary of the countries were not clear. This is one of the problems, of the Thai academic also, because when we talk about the uprising of the holy men, the boundary were not clearly identified, because people in the old day would cross the border from Chongmek border, because at that time we didn't have the clear definition of the country. We didn't have clear boundary. Chongmek actually is the border town, and it's called Chongmek after the name of one of the monks in the old days. When we have the Ubon Ratchathani governor called San Pasit. In the old days, Lao didn't support, were not on our side, because they also oppressed the Kui, the blue ethnic. Lao ethnic in Isaan wouldn't take side with the Kui and the blue ethnic people. But Lao people, if you read the record, the documentation writing about Khemarat, Thao, or Suvarnabhumi city, you would hear about the war, the fighting of, collecting tax from citizens, they're trying to fight to have the citizens in their side so that they can collect taxes. They can collect more taxes and send it to the central government. So, for example, it's the same as in the case when I was a monk. The higher position monks, when I was the novice monks, the higher monks would want more and more novice monks to go to Bangkok so that they can get more money, they can get awarded with higher position. So the governor trying to collect taxes from us 4 baht per person, and some people didn't want to pay taxes. So they protested against the governor, and a lot of them, those who protested against the governor, actually got killed. So the Thai New Year is the 1st of April, and that is the day when they had to send the taxes to the governor. If they couldn't pay on the same date, they would be fined, and they would have to pay 2 times double the tax they were supposed to pay, which is 8 baht. So after, if they were late until May, they would have to pay higher, like more, even higher than doubles. They would have to pay around 30 something baht. If they couldn't pay at all, if they couldn't pay taxes at all, the Thai citizen would become slaves to work hard to dig up the area, to build pagodas or stuff. So that's the reason why there were uprisings in the Isaan area, and we wouldn't have Ubon as the city today without the history and the dialect, the old way of communicating through the like which is called dialect. Sorry, I missed I missed that part. Without the telegram, at that time Ubon would disappear from the one of the cities of Thailand. So so for example, like when we talk about bodhisattva, anyone can be bodhisattva. For example, like some animals can also be bodhisattva. For example, the cat in the bookstore which is sleeping now, it could be bodhisattva. That's what that's our belief. So when people were forced to send taxes to the governor after the uprising, and people were arrested by the central government by the governor. People were killed, the holy men group were killed. They made an announcement. Actually, I would like to talk more about the killing, the massacre of the holy men, but it would take a long time. So I will end my talk with the announcement from Luang Sanpasit Chipasong, who's the governor of Ubon Ratchathani in the past. If you went to the museum today, you would see his monument near the museum. So he issued an announcement to give warning to the Thai citizens. They use the word warning. This is based on the research written about the holy men uprising. They use their research which based on the research of Ajahn Bun. So in the announcement, they ask people to follow their order. So the Thai citizens everywhere in Isaan, in Ubon, especially in Ubon, they have to follow the order strictly. So they need to be honest. They need to have honest career. They shouldn't drink too much, and they should tend their farm, their rivers, their swamps, so that they have water to do farming and to tend their animals in the dry season until the rainy season. These natural resources belong to the nation. So they should take good care of the natural resources. So if you listen to number 1 and number 2, it seems that the governor actually cares about the Thai citizen. They ask the citizen to have honest career, to not drink too much, to not commit robbery. But for the third one, they ask people to prepare 4 baht as the taxes to pay for the government every year. Sorry, not every month, every year. 4 baht a year, a person. Number 4, They ask the government officials who help to collect taxes from Thai citizens to to ask them to collect taxes in April, not in April, but actually in January. 4 baht in January, not April. Sorry, I gave the wrong information. Starting from January, if they missed, if they couldn't pay until March, they have to pay 8 baht. If they couldn't pay in March, they would have to pay the fine, the delay fine, which is about 30 baht. And also they have to pay for the fine for the official to come to collect the taxes from them. And then number 6, if anybody would like to be rewarded if anybody didn't pay taxes and if arrested by government officials, they would those officials be awarded by the government. Number 7, anybody would like to travel to other areas, they need to have the document, the identification document. You know, the citizen of a province to check if anyone didn't pay taxes, they would have to be arrested. By using their labor to help government. So the next one, anybody travel to other in the residence, they need to inform the government officials anywhere to escape from the law that were sent to the citizens after they defeated the Holy Group. So after the massacre of the Holy Men Group in Isaan area, Ubon, they also try to control people with the same political belief to control them. So in my home, I have medication. So one of my elderly, she's a female, and she would use herbal medicine to treat people. For example, they would use a kind of flower to treat people. So she would provide medication to people, and she was killed. She would kill. Her head was cut off, and then her head was attached to the stick, and they just left it at the area where is the park of the city today. Until this day, you know, people are afraid of the government officials. You know, after just because of the oppression from the government. That's why people are afraid of the government officials. And also, they also build a lot of dams using the name of the royal family of the monarchy, so that they can control people. They can take the natural resources from the people. So you can see that politics is about power. It's about the struggle over the natural resources. The reason why we have to go back so far to the early history, as far as 121 years ago, you could see that the struggle of the people fighting over their rights to the natural resources. You know, for the struggle over the natural resources, people would do through what they believe about, and apart from and after that, people were collected from the central government during the reign of the King Rama IV and Rama V until nowadays. You can see that the natural resources in Isaan, even the languages, the equity, they try to reduce the equity of the people in the area in Isaan region by the central government. Before we move to the next speaker, Kun Kotchakorn, 121 years ago, we have a song about village head who would beat the drum to call for the meeting to ask people to give the taxes to send to the government. But after that, you will see more development. There were dams being constructed, there were electricity, there were other facilities being built, being provided to the people. So next, Kotchakorn will talk about the Khong Chi Moon project, which the central government thought that Isaan is very dry. Isaan people would need more water. If you look at the ecology of Isaan is actually dry in the dry season. The natural resources would, kind of like take a break. People would give a break to the natural resources during in the dry season. People would use a lot of resources, but also in the rainy season, people would let the natural resources take a break. But people think that Isaan is a dry area. That's why they came up with a lot of dam construction in the Chi River Basin. And I also want to build more dams on the Mekong River. So if we look at history, from the old days until nowadays, so Gao will give us the connection of the people's struggle over the history. So I actually can speak Thai and English, but Ajahn Ian would like me to speak Lao, so I will speak Lao. So I'm not from here. So in Wanon district, I'm from Wanon district, and there people have the potash mine, and I grew up with hearing people struggle against the government for this issue. People would fight against the government, but they wouldn't win over the investors in the area. So when I grew up, I went to study in Ratchathani province, and in those years, young people came out to fight against the government. They would use the three finger action to express their protest against the government. So the areas in Ratchathani province, we have the main problem. So if you travel from Roy City, you would pass the Mechi River and also its tributaries. When I was at the university from year 1 to year 4, some area would be flooded. At that time, I was a sprinkler of the Isaan record. I would go to the area to collect information, to write news. I would ride a motorbike from Selapum, Samad district to Tung Khao Luang district. So in those areas, the road would be higher than the farmland. It is higher than the farmland. It's like 3-4 meters higher from the farmland, and the area was still flooded. Whenever the flooding was very bad, it means that people taking care of the dam operation didn't have a good plan or didn't do well in terms of water management. So when they had heavy flooding, people over there would have to lose their farmland. They would be able to go right and make a living. So from my experiences, I work with the Khong Chi Moon movement. I worked with them for 3-4 years. I have experienced that the elderly who are 70-80 years old, they still have to take a bus to the provincial hall to protest, to demonstrate, to try to negotiate with the provincial governor. This is something about, I think something that is problematic because our provincial governor is not someone who's from the area. They would come from somewhere else. So they don't know the area very well. So the area that I work on is in Roy and also in Phnom Penh district in Yasothon province. They have been fighting against the government for more than 10 years, and they have to travel, and they have to take a bus to the provincial hall every year to ask for the negotiation every year, trying to demand from the government to help with the closing and the opening of the gates of the dam every year. So the elderly who are quite old, from the middle age to the very old age, they would have to take a bus to make the demand from the government, from the provincial governor. They would set up the deadlines for the governor to follow their demand, and if they do not keep their promises, the people would elevate their protest. So people who gather and protest against government officers, they actually also local people would think they actually they have more power than the people. And also whenever people go there to the provincial governor, they wouldn't meet with the provincial governor every time. The governor wouldn't come down to see the people. Sometimes he would send his people to negotiate with the people. To wait for a long time, they had to do something to entertain themselves while waiting. delegation wouldn't go anywhere, so they had to travel to Bangkok. Again, I haven't been with people. When I was there, the compensation have been given to people for like 70-80% already. So the fighting, the struggle's been like quite a long time, and they has set up the subcommittee to survey the losses of the people in order to give compensation to people. So after the change of the government, whenever we change the government, the people who fight against the government, they would hate politicians because ไม่ได้ยินละ they would hate politicians because politicians, whenever the government is changed, they would change their side too. They would take side with the current government. So people feel like they cannot really rely on the politicians. So they would try to rely on themselves as much as they can. So Kun Kotchakorn, has shared her experience with us. Working with the people who was fighting against Phnom Penh Dam in Roi Et. So this is how people have fought against the Khong Chi Moon project. So you could see that the fighting over the natural resources from the central government would be through large-scale projects, so that they can take away the natural resources from the people. So they would want to control the flowing of the river that the flow through the Chi river, through the Khong river, through the Moon river, and then go through the Khong river. So people have been struggling with the Khong Chi Moon project for more than 30 years. And the local people, if they didn't stand up to fight against the government, for people along the Chi river, they haven't received compensation because they didn't start the movement in the early years. They have just started in 3-4 years ago, but people by the Moon River and the Khong River have started their protests a long time ago, and then they have received compensation from the government. So now what people are demanding from the government is to ask them to pay for the lots, for the compensation of their lots from now back to 26 years after the dam construction, after the large-scale project completion. So we are waiting to see the government that would, take the people's side so that we receive compensation, from the government. This is how the natural resources are taken from the government. So we actually hope that with the new government, we can proceed with demanding for the compensation from the government, from the current government. So you can see the clear picture of how people struggle over the natural resources. So you can see the politics in Isaan, the accessibility to the natural resources from the old days until now, since the Bowring Treaty. People actually were taken advantage because of that treaty. and people were forced to pay taxes until Isaan people had to do the uprising. And even nowadays, Isaan people are still fighting against the government. Mea Sompong, the one of the speakers yesterday, she's been fighting for 30-40 years. People in the Rasi Salai area where the Rasi Salai Dam is located, they are still fighting in order to have equal accessibility to the natural resources. Not just the natural resources are taken away from us, but our belief, our cultures were also taken away from by the central government. So I would like to open the floor for anyone who have questions to ask us. My question is, I would like the speakers to talk about Isaan people. We talk about the problems, we talk about the oppression, we talk about the uprising, which we have heard about the incidents quite a lot. But I would like to know from the two speakers, because from the history of the Isaan people uprising, I would like you to talk about the nature of Isaan people. Because like from the nature of the Isaan people, they are the fighter. But the way we fight against the government, it's been harder and harder for us to fight against the government. So what do you think about people fighting against the government nowadays? How much hope we have in order to win, over the power, the central power? So I heard about people's struggle since I was a novice monk, and I learned a lot about the fighting of the people in the case of the Pak Mun Dam. And I also join people in the fighting. I have never felt so hopeful, because I don't know who we are fighting against. Who are we fighting against? We have the invisible hands that we cannot see. Sometimes we can project that, the visible hand is so big, but we don't know what, whose hand it is. So because I talk about the feudalism and capitalism that work together so well, capitalism is taking over the country. I'm actually not the supporter of the left wing, but I would like to say that we need to decentralize, the natural resources, the capital. I think nowadays we have been, we are very hopeful, because Philadelphia is the gathering of the intellectuals. I'm actually the head of the young people. I'm actually the leader of the young people. And also the second thing is that I have built the Holy Man library, because I have become very hopeful that, since I have been fighting along with other people, I have never seen that it's so clear that, we can be hopeful that we might win, over the power, the central power. Now we can see that what we are fighting against, and we can see that what is, stopping us from having everything that we deserve. And there's one political party that is, trying to fight against the capitalism. The big investors in the country, the big monopoly, the big investors who monopolize, the trade, the capitalism in the country. So after, there's a big mob led by the young people, I have become more hopeful. I know that people have become active, and I could even tell that the the election result would be whatever I expected. I expected it to be, and even more than what I expected. After that political party won the election, they couldn't set up the government. But then it was clear for us why we couldn't set up the government. That's why we need to have, clearer goal, and we know now that who's our enemy, because we will have more and more new voters, and the senators, the old senators would die, in the next 10 years. So I think we will win when the time arrives. So my bookstore is the place where people can come and sign petition to change something in the constitution. At that time, the ECT, the Election Commission of Thailand, didn't allow people to sign petition online, so they only had to do it by hand. My library, my bookstore is one of the spots where people would come to sign, to join the petition. You know who came to my bookstore? They are doctors, they are nurses. So in Thailand, the lawyerists, the doctors, the nurses, they actually are royalists, but actually they were the majority of the people who came to my bookstore to sign the petition. And they also asked us to give the name, to give the list to the amnesty people. So, nurses, doctors in Thailand who used to be, royalists, they have changed. So I'm sure that in the near future, things will change. If, the Move Forward Party, people are not killed, just like in the 6th October event, I think we will win for sure. If the politics change, we will, when I read the history book, I learned that Phá Ngum kings immigrated from Cambodia. I actually appreciate, you Vietnamese people, Lao people, because I believe that my ancestors, come from those countries. I would like to go back to, Vietnam. I would like to travel to Laos to meet my brothers and sisters. If the politics, is improved. Because, when the politics, when we have better governments, people will open up to, the neighboring countries. We actually want, I actually want people in the Mekong region, to form a group and fight against China. Because, China, they actually block the waterway, the flowing of the river. But because of the dams in China that block, the flowing of the Mekong River, if they, release the water, I think Cambodia would be submerged, would be swallowed by the water for sure. So even Vietnam, is affected by the dams in China. Now they cannot compete with Thailand if they, release the water at the same time. We don't even have to fight in the war using weapons. They can just, control the waterway, the flowing of the water, and they would win over us. So if we form a group, if we work together with the people in the Mekong region to stop China from controlling the water in the Mekong River. That's my point. Okay, so after listening to PGF, it's hard for me to remember what I want to say to answer the question. So if we talk about the struggle of the Isaan people, I am just 20 years old and I have just experienced the struggle of the people for a few years, and after talking to PGF and from my experiences working with Isaan people, I think that they have the spirit of the fighters. They fight because they have nothing left. If they don't fight, they will just die. There's an event that I joined. I went to Yasothon province. I work with the elderly, and I enjoy working with them.น้องภูมิwhen I saw the elderly joining the event, sometimes I would feel like they were too old to like to fight in the group. Sorry, I couldn't hear because the batteries. Sorry, I have to wait for the battery to be recharged. I need to change it. So I saw a big golden ring. I saw the big golden ring on the finger of one of the elderly, and I asked them about how their life is. So I asked if they could make like enough money to make a living. They have one golden ring and they do not have farmland to make a living. They only their children work in Bangkok. So the reason why they want to fight, to join the group fighting over fighting against the government, is that it's because this is what they have left. And the elderly there, two of them, they were friends, they're fighting together because they have nothing left, and that really like moved me. They have hope. They have hope because what they have, the natural resources that they have, is everything for them. If one day they do not have this, they will lose hope. If they do not fight, they would have nothing left. So if you think that the elderly who are affected by the development projects know nothing about what's going on, that's not true. They have the information, they have the data, and they would go out to fight. The elderly 70, 80 years old, they would go out to fight, and that makes me realize that we young people also need to fight because the elderly try, and why don't we try to do the same thing as what they are doing? Soน้องภูมิมันดับไปเลยอ่ะโอเค you know, people also fight because they want their their children, their kids, their grandchildren to come back to their hometown so that they can, you know, make a living in their hometown without going to work in Bangkok. So we are fighting, you know, the politicians that we support, the party that we support actually won the government, won the election, but we still couldn't form the government, and we also like were oppressed by the military government, you know, in the past. Ajahn Ian also has something to share with us. Ajahn Ian is an expert, especially, you know, he has investigated about the politics in Isaan region. Thank you so much. I would like to add some information. There are many things that I want to talk about, but I don't think I have all the time to talk about them. We talk about Samret Run, a very important, you know, powerful guy in Isaan history. But I want to talk about the pride of Isaan people. In the history of the Isaan people struggle, before we can fight against the government, we need to be sure about what we are fighting for. This is the natural rule, you know. We have to know about our history. We have to be proud of our history. Otherwise, we cannot, you know, start our movement. Until now, everyone know well that people have sacrificed, and sometimes it's a shame that Isaan people, they are not proud of themselves. They don't want to be called Isaan people. They don't want to speak Isaan because the central government make them feel like they are the central people are superior than them. So when we talk about the fighting of the people for the unfair treatment from the central government, if we try to understand what our history and what we are fighting for, we will know that we own the area. We are the owner of our natural resources. You know, it's our area and no one can take it away from us. So we also fight, you know, through our politicians in order that, you know, the local government can have more power. You know, the government can be decentralized to the local level of government. You know, when Isaan people talk, they would use Isaan. But then when they have to do something more formal, they have to give formal speech, they would use Thai. You know, the reason why Thai Isaan people, you know, don't want to speak Isaan, you know, is because you would know why. You know, you would know the reason why. So my wife was born in Chaturat district, and you know, a lot of people here might not understand the history of the district. You might have heard about Phayale. You know, Phayale is the name of one of the kings, and another king called Phayana Lung Songkram, who is the soldier of the Chao Anu, which is one of the kings in the old days. They waged the war in Bualumlum, which is the province where my wife's from. So Phayale, the king, at first he wanted to be in the same side with Chao Anu, another king, but then he he betrayed the Zhao Anu king, and then uh, Zhao Anu became the traitor. And sorry, I missed this part. So we talk about the holy men in that area. Also, we have. So he mentioned the medium, the one of the way the people use the medium to talk about, like the spirit that they believe in, so that they could tell people what they should do in order to fight against the government. That's the old way of people fighting in the Holy Men Rebellion time. So we also have a big fighters in our history, in Isaan history. We have Tiang Sirikan, the politicians, the MPs, the 4 MPs who were killed by the central government. So we need to study, our history to have true understanding, and that could be the starting point for us to be proud of ourselves, to feel confident to fight against the government, and it will be easy, if we know about ourselves well. Thank you, Ajahn Ian, for adding the information that is important, that we learn about our history, and we are proud of ourselves, so that we can fight, we can talk about our struggle with pride. This is the nature of Isaan people, that they are so proud of being themselves. They are proud of living in the area. That's why they have been fighting until now. Do you guys have any questions? If you have any extra questions, please feel free to ask your questions. But actually, we are running out of time. We have spent history, 200 something years old history in 1.5 hour, which is, it's like a, summary of everything. But it helped us to see the picture of the Mekong region history. You learn about the boundaries that were not clear. People travel, our relationship of, the people in our country and in other countries. So we need to open up to, our neighbors. We work together in order to fight, to own our natural resources. We need to have hope, so that we can, fight together. So we'll meet again next year. Thank you, our fellow from the organizations from the different sectors. Thank you, the different organizations. Thank you, different sectors who support us, so that we can have this forum, the Mekong ASEAN Environmental Week 2023. Thank you everyone who traveled this far to join us. You have come so far to learn from us, to exchange your knowledge, to exchange your idea in the past week, starting from the 26th until now. Please give yourself a big hand. I really have great respect for you. And thank you everyone for watching us live from home. We have broadcasting our forum throughout the program, and please give a big hand to the people who watch us live from home. Thank you everyone for joining us. I think the people who join us, who are here with us, will have dinner with us here, and we have music in the evening in order to close our forum, our Mekong ASEAN Environmental Week. So if you are in Ubon and if you would like to join us, you can still travel here. You can still have time to come to the bookstore. Or sorry everyone to again, and thank you for the main organizer of the forum. Hope to see you again next year.
เกี่ยวกับอันนี้ใช่ไหมอ๋อ